They called it the Rose, a station vast as a city, drifting in high orbit above the scarred Earth. Its petals were steel and glass, layered modules spreading outward in uneven symmetry, a blossom of machinery holding the last memory of mankind. Within its walls lay the ancient archive, the greatest library ever built. The order of archivists kept vigil here. They walked the dim-lit halls, cataloging relics smuggled from ruins, burned books wrapped in ash-stained cloth, fractured datapads scavenged from dust, fragments of memory too fragile to last another year on the surface. Few below even knew the Rose existed. Fewer still had set foot within it. Now and then, a shuttle clawed its way up through storm and cloud, bearing relics or whispers of discovery, and sometimes the archivists descended themselves, chasing a rumor of a codex or a single page thought long gone. Their creed was etched above every chamber door, carved into every training hall. The archive remembers, the archive endures. But even roses have thorns, and even memory can bleed. Chapter 1. The Fall. Archivist Terran jabbed the call button with a stiff finger. Nothing. Just the tired hum of a system that had been dead all week. He pressed again, harder, as if the lift might obey through stubbornness alone. The panel flickered once, then went dark. A noise rose inside the shaft, a strained whir, half an engine trying to start but failing. It guttered out, leaving silence and a faint metallic echo that lingered too long. Well, Terran muttered, when no one maintains them, it isn't hard to guess they'll fail. He cursed under his breath. The novice standing beside him shifted uneasily. 16, maybe 17. Face pale in the cold light, eyes too quick to look away. Maybe the auxiliary? He tried. Terran's look was contempt made flesh. I'll be doing that thing you asked, the boy stammered and slipped down the corridor. Relief showed in his shoulders as he put distance between them. Terran spat to the floor. Just books. Who cares? Not a priority. It may be the last scraps of the old world's knowledge, but hell, who gives a damn? Why would books ever be a priority in the only archive left to us? He turned back to the useless lift and slammed his palm against the door. No response. So, the ladder. Always the ladder. With a snarl, he seized the rungs. Cold bit through his gloves. 6th deck, Delta section, the one where condensation drains clogged every other day. He began to climb, each pull sending dull vibrations into the shaft. His knee popped with a sharp, snapping sound. The old archivist grimaced but ignored it, dragging himself upward. The archive groaned around him like an old ship. Above, a strip light flickered in nervous rhythm. Below stretched emptiness, 20 meters of air ending in a steel grate. Terran climbed higher, boots ringing the rungs. His breath came hard, the old scar in his ribs tugging with each pull. He told himself again it was foolish to be the one carrying it. The book. Rare, ancient, fragile as ash. He was supposed to deliver it, not keep it, not read it. Just place it into the hands of a man he barely knew. At first, he had refused, but the man had spoken of it like a matter of life and death. And in the end, Terran had said yes. He was still thinking of the man's eyes, sharp and unblinking, when his boot pressed against a rung that rang wrong. His throat tightened. Halfway up, his boot paused. Something felt off, rougher, thin beneath his weight. He leaned closer, breath fogging the metal, a carved groove scored across it. His throat tightened. Why would, he whispered, the rung snapped. The fall was short, brutal. His body struck the grate with a crack that rolled up the shaft in a hollow echo. From the corridor, the novice flinched at the sound, as if something heavy had smashed the floor. He froze, then crept back, curiosity and dread in equal measure. He stepped into the shaft room. At first he saw only the pale gleam of the grate below. Then his eyes caught the body. The breath left his chest. It was the archivist. For a moment, he couldn't move. His legs carried him forward as if on their own, down toward the grate. The body lay twisted where it had fallen, limbs bent at impossible angles. "Master Terran?" His voice cracked. No answer. Only the metallic tang of blood in the air. He knelt beside the old man, reaching but not daring to touch. The eyes stared past him, glassy and unfocused. Shock numbed him, then ebbed into horror. His gaze lifted, unwillingly, up the ladder. One rung looked wrong. He squinted, wiping his sleeve across his face. The edge wasn't bent or rusted. It was cut, a clean groove, sharp and deliberate. His stomach lurched. This was no accident. I have to report this, he thought. And that was when they revealed themselves. At the top of the ladder, a figure stepped out of shadow. Gray EVA cloak, helmet mirror bright in the strip light. Another followed, then a third. They hadn't come to kill. That work was already done by the cut in the rung. They were only there to watch the result. But the novice was the variable they hadn't planned for. He had seen too much. Their helmets turned toward him in perfect unison. The silence broke with a single metallic note, the first step of their boots ringing on the ladder's steel. Chapter 2: The Fight. The novice turned toward the shaft, ready to run for the alarm, and froze. They were there. Figures in gray EVA cloaks stepped out of shadow at the ladder's mouth. Helmets mirror bright, unreadable, catching the strip light in cold glints. Each carried an ion rod, crackling arcs of blue-white fire humming along their length. The air thick with scorched ozone. 3 of them. 2 men and a woman. For a heartbeat, he thought they were statues. Guardians from some forgotten ritual. Then one shifted, the thrum of its weapon vibrating through the bulkhead frames. His stomach lurched. He hadn't heard them approach. Had they been waiting there the whole time, watching? The clang of boots rang down the shaft, metal groaning as echoes stacked against the walls. The novice staggered back, heart hammering. They didn't just appear, he thought. They chose to be seen. The first advanced, the heavy cloak, tall and broad-shouldered. Every movement patient and deliberate. The mirrored visor gave nothing back, only his own reflection, small, pale, trembling in the glass. The novice swallowed, his voice cracking as he forced the words out. You killed him." No answer. The rod screamed alive, a blade of light edged with fury. He ripped a conduit pipe from the wall. Crude, rust-flecked, but it had reach. He set his feet, breath shallow. Fear didn't vanish, but training surfaced. Stances drilled at dawn, hips turned, shoulders aligned, movements flowing like water. He had been trained as every archivist is trained. He wasn't a master, but he doubted the killers were. In that breath, he made himself remember he was more than a role, more than a title. He had a name. Jonas. The heavy cloak struck first. Plasma carved a searing arc, bright enough to blind. Jonas pivoted, conduit intercepting with both hands. Light exploded as steel and energy clashed, the pipe shuddering, a wave of current jolting through his bones, but he held. The pipe didn't melt. The rods were meant to stun, not cut. Still, the charge slammed through him like fire. The heavy cloak faltered half a step, visor tilting, surprised. Not that the pipe had held, but that the novice had. Jonas flowed with the opening. Twist, redirect, thrust. Simple forms beaten into him 100 times. The pipe struck the visor, ringing like a cathedral bell. The heavy cloak reeled, shoulder crashing into a bookcase. Shelves toppled, tomes spilling in a storm of paper and dust. Embers spiraled as a loose page caught flame. The second closed in. The swift cloak, shorter, faster, blade a blur. Female. Her cloak cut short for speed. Her steps sharp and coiled like a predator's. She carved a molten scar through the bulkhead where Jonas had stood a heartbeat before, sparks hissing into the air. He shifted weight, pipe circling in a smooth parry. His body turned with the strike, redirecting her momentum wide. The conduit swept low, a classic sweet form. Metal cracked against her knee plating. She staggered. Jonas rose fluidly, twisting hips and shoulders, snapping the pipe into her chest plate. The blow echoed like hollow thunder. She reeled, her ion rod spinning from her grip, skittering across the deck in sparks. The third stayed back, the watching cloak, taller, mantle unbroken, posture priest-like, male. His rod circled in slow, deliberate arcs, casting light at strobed shadows across the corridor, like moving glass saints. The heavy and the swift came again, together. Jonas blocked left, sparks spitting across his cheek. The swift cloak's second strike slid past, grazing his shoulder. Heat ripped through him. Cloth and skin fusing. The stench of burnt flesh filled his nose, choking him. He staggered, knees bending, then pushed through, letting the pain roll with him. A low stance carried him under the next swing. Rage surged. Jonas drove forward, rising in a sharp whip of motion, conduit smashing into the swift cloak's visor. Glass spidered with cracks, her body lurching back with a muffled grunt. For an instant, silence. Even the watching cloak slowed, weapon humming like a caged storm. Smoke curled from burning paper, shadows twitching in the flashing light. Then the storm broke. Two blades struck in unison. Jonas spun his pipe to intercept, but the impact ripped it from his hands, clattering across the deck. Energy seared into him, buckling his knees. Gloved hands, the heavy cloaks, clamped his arms, slamming him against the wall. His chest heaved, shoulder burning raw. The stench of his own charred flesh clinging in the air. Yet his eyes still burned with defiance. The heavy cloak leaned close, mirrored visor filling his vision. In it, Jonas saw only himself, battered, gasping, but not broken. The watching cloak's rod hissed alive again, tip raised an inch from his throat. Enough, the watching cloak commanded, voice flat and filtered. The others froze. From beneath his mantle, the watching cloak drew a compact sidearm, its emitter glowing faint blue. No flourish, no warning. One pull of the trigger, a crack of light slammed into Jonas's chest. His body arched, every nerve on fire, then collapsed as darkness rushed in. Chapter 3. The Empty Cell. The world returned in fragments. A hum first, low and constant, as if the walls themselves breathed. Then the taste of iron in his mouth. A pulse in his chest, deep and bruised. When he tried to move, pain flooded him. His shoulder burned where cloth had fused to the charred wound. Across his ribs, a heavier ache pulsed from the stun rod's strike, nerves still alive with buzzing fire. Each breath came shallow, dragging cold air into a throat scraped raw. He clawed at the fabric, tried to tear it loose, hissed in pain, and let it cling. His eyes opened to shadow. The cell was coffin narrow, lined not with polished alloy, but with patchwork plating, rusted seams damp with condensation. Drops gathered, fattened, then fell to the floor with tiny metallic taps. The sound echoed like a clock, keeping time in the emptiness. Above, a strip light buzzed, sickly yellow, flickering in fits. Each pulse threw the cell into a different shape, rivets glistening, the chain at his wrist catching a gleam, then nothing but dark. The pauses between flickers stretched too long, like breaths held by something unseen. He shifted and the cuff clanged against the wall. The sound was too loud, ricocheting through the metal. He froze, listening. Silence answered. Then memory. It slammed back with violence. The archivist's scream cut short. The body twisted on the grate. The rung above sheared clean. Gray figures stepping from the shadow. Faces hidden behind mirrored visors that reflected his own panic back at him. The fight. training rising in him like old muscle memory. The clash of rods. The last blow ablaze across his ribs, and the world collapsing to black. He bit his tongue until blood pooled metallic on his teeth. His order had drilled clarity into him. Never let fear blur truth. Never allow authority to bend what eyes had witnessed. Hold memory like a blade. Yet here in the humming dark, even certainty frayed at the edges. The door scraped open. Mentor stepped in. His robe's hem brushed the damp floor. His lined face was carved into calm, but under the stuttering light, that calm seemed brittle. An old mask with cracks behind it. "You're awake," Mentor said. The novice forced himself upright, back to the wall. His voice rasped. The archivist was murdered. "I saw it. The rung was cut." "An accident," Mentor replied evenly. "Metal fatigues. The mind colors what fear makes it see." "I fought them," the novice snapped, heat rising despite the pain. "Cloaks, 2 of them. Ion rods." He swallowed. "Who were they?" Mentor's eyes narrowed, but his tone stayed smooth. "You lashed out in panic. Discipline slipped." The words landed heavy. Not correction, not guidance, erasure. The novice felt his training recoil. Truth is not a thing granted. Truth is held, defended. What you have seen is yours until death. That was the creed drilled into him since boyhood. And now Mentor, the man who had spoken those same words, dismissed him with a sentence. Anger flared, but beneath it steadied something colder. Resistance. He would not let them write over what he had seen. Bootsteps rang in the corridor. He stiffened. The door opened wider. Figures entered heavy robes, faces pale beneath the failing light. The council. Their presence thickened the air. Even Mentor moved aside. The eldest raised a hand, and silence deepened, the hum seeming to lower in submission. "The archivist's death will be recorded as mishap," he said. All mention removed. His name struck from rolls. The novice jerked forward in his chain. "You can't." "Silence," Mentor cut him off. "Too fast, too sharp." The councilman's gaze passed over him like frost, then away. Not recognition, but erasure. "This matter is closed. The archive cannot bear unrest. Files purged before dawn." No debate, no vote. Just decree, absolute. They turned as one and departed. Their robes dragged through the damp, leaving trails of moisture behind. The door sealed, but their presence clung. The faint smell of paper and oil. The echo of boots that seemed to linger even after silence returned. The cell felt smaller, colder, as if their absence had weight. Mentor lingered. His face softened, but the eyes did not. He bent close. Breath, warm with incense. "You must let this go," he whispered. "Do not chase ghosts, or they will chase you." The words pressed into him with a weight colder than the council's decree. Not lesson, not comfort. A warning that felt almost like a threat. The door sealed. Alone, he leaned back against the wall. The hum filled the air again, but now he heard it as counting. The flicker of the light matched it. On, off, on, off. Each pulse another step nearer to something he could not see. He closed his eyes. But the afterimage burned red against his lids, pulsing in rhythm. A countdown. And for the first time, he no longer knew if Mentor sought to protect him or to bury him with the truth. And a little further on, a man sat, nervous as ever, still waiting for the book they said would be delivered. Chapter 3.5, The Operation. They called the room the pit. Low ceiling, no windows, racks of cold light, consoles and a horseshoe around a sunken floor where the map wall lived, a slab of blue-white geometry that pulsed like machinery breathing. "Status," the officer at center said. "Comms green, thermal green, Tracking suite nominal, the scar-lipped tech reported. People moved with the economy of rehearsed muscle. Kits checked, clamps clipped. Coils nested. Everything had a place. Everything had a checklist. Authenticate tasking. The tech slid a wafer into the reader. The wall accepted it, then spilled the assignment in clean block text. Operation, silence. Authority, Council Prime 7. Objective, neutralize Spear 9. Targeting capability, ROE containment. Priority, no broadcasts. There would be no commendations, no after-action reports. Silence was written into the name. Official on paper, deniable in practice. A council order carried out off the books. Only the pit would know it had happened at all. Copy, the officer said. We go dark. Dark, the room answered. The hum of the station sank into the background. Here the finer sound was the whine of cooling fans and the sharp click of diagnostics. The navigator brought up the lattice. Nodes, relays, orbital lanes. At its center, the glyph burned bright. Spear 9. A pin dropped lower on the map. Coastline geometry resolved. A label appeared. Sector 3A. Commit in 12 hours, the tech said. The number landed flat in the room. That's when the lattice hardens, when the lock becomes irreversible. After that, Spear 9 will be able to strike on command. No one pretended 12 hours was generous. It was a window, and windows closed without warning. Field kit? The officer asked. Packed. Non-lethals? Packed. Lethals? A pause. Not authorized. A beat longer. Packed anyway. There was no levity in the answer. They packed what they might need and left judgments to the ones who slept in higher corridors. The navigator highlighted the critical chain. Relays 4 through 7. Pathing plotted. Minimal cams, minimal foot traffic. Delta 3 maintenance junction is our blind approach. Copy, the officer said. Rule stand. Do not engage cloak units unless they fire first. The cloaks answer to Prime. They're the station's covert arm. We don't pick fights with our own black shirts, we break the lattice. A floor team keyed their cons and moved toward the side hatch. Boots were a controlled sound, firm, quiet. The hatch sighed and sealed behind them. A ping chimed from the far console. The tech frowned. Administrative lock on Relay 7, he said. Right protected by Council Prime. The room, used to commands, felt the change like chill. The officer's jaw tightened, so Prime closed 7. Read only. The tech confirmed. We can observe, not alter. Then we work around it. Cut 4, 5, 6. Ghost 7. The officer's voice was small, absolute. The braided woman checked the coil seals again. Sir, if 7 is protected by Prime, and Prime answers to Council, aren't we cutting against their authority? We're cutting to prevent a strike, the officer said. For the station and for below it. That answers the question. 12 hours became 11 hours, 59 on the wall. The team advanced in map silence. The navigator kept the route tight, showing the path through the bones of the rows. Icons slid along corridors, then blinked to the Delta 3 throat. Delta 3 cams unreliable, the navigator warned. Expect blind patch. They slipped into the gap. For a time, the map went quiet. Then, the floor team reappeared, one junction farther. No tricks, no ghosts, just precise, measured movement. Report, the officer said into the room. Cutting 4, the lead called, voice steady. Cutting 5. 6 armed. The technicians worked like craftsmen on an old engine. Clamps latched, coils placed, isolation seals engaged. One coil hummed when primed. Another tasted of old ozone. Tools clanged in practiced rhythm. No fireworks, just the ugly, methodical business of breaking power paths. On the wall, Spear 9's icon flickered as circuits went dark and rerouted. Each relay they severed added fractions of delay to the lattice's heartbeat. The officer watched numbers change in real time. Latency drifted, packet flow buckled, commit drifted. 2 hours, the tech said. Keep pressure, the officer ordered. If we can drag the commit past 12, we force them to react. We make them show hands. The braided woman tightened a strap on her pack. If Council overrides 7, what then? Then we've bought what we can buy, he said. And we pray the operators above us don't pull the trigger. There was no prayer in the room, only work. Outside the pit, the rose continued its slow orbit around a scarred globe. On the map, Sector 3A pulsed, a small, insistent light, full of people who had not yet been warned. The floor team pushed forward, hands steady, faces set. The pit kept its discipline. Mark any cloak sightings, the officer said. Do not engage unless fired upon. Marked, the navigator answered. Time thinned into tasks. Relay 4, then 5, then 6. Each cut a measured theft of seconds. The map showed the lattice stiffened slower than it should have. The tech watched the telemetry like a man watching a patient hold breath. The officer let the words fall. Keep it tight. Report any council traffic to me directly. The floor team's icons crawled back toward the pit, then paused at maintenance posts as crews checked seals and cleared debris. Tools were stowed. Coils were unlatched. The team moved with the quiet of professionals who had done their worst and returned. On the map, Spear 9 still hovered, its glyph steady. The lock had slowed, but not failed. The 12-hour clock continued to count down, merciless and impartial.